Hey booktube, welcome back. My name is Laura if you're new here, and today I'm going over my best and worst books of 2020. It's not quite the end of the year, I still have a couple of days left, and I do have a few more books that I plan to finish before the end of the year, but I'm just gonna do this video now. So as of right now, I don't think there's going to be any changes to this list. I don't think any of the books that I still have left to read are going to be on either of these lists, so I'm pretty sure it's safe to be doing this right now, so it's fine. So these are the best and the worst books that I have read this year. I'm going over my top 5 for each category. I'm going to start with the worst books of the year, just so that we can end on a positive note. Let's get right into it. Starting with the 5th worst book that I read this year, and we are starting off on a controversial note. Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. Yep, this one. I know people love this series, they go nuts over it. I like the series, I'm just not a fan of this book specifically. Please don't come for me, but I hated this book. This is the 3rd book in the Dividers series, which takes place in the 1920s in New York and follows a group of teenagers who all have some kind of magical power of sorts, and they all work together to try and take down a league of ghosts from, murdering the world. Just as any normal teenager does, this is normal. But I like this series. I wasn't like gung-ho for the first one, but the second one was fantastic. So I had high hopes for this one. It was supposed to take place in a asylum, and I thought it was gonna be really spooky and wonderful, and it just really was not, at all. It was yikes. It was pretty cringy, I'm not gonna lie. If somebody told me that this book was published in Twilight era of YA fantasy, I would believe it. This is fairly recent, but it reads like old school cringy YA, and not in the fun way, because those old school cringy books were really fun. Their cringe is what made them so enjoyable. This is the bad version of that, in my opinion. I really didn't enjoy anything about this book. There's way too many characters and perspectives. This book was mostly about romance, and I just did not give a flying fuck about any of the romances in this book. I like maybe 1 or 2 of the romances. Everything else though, I'm just why is it here? I don't know. This one was also weirdly sexual. Everybody is just getting laid and masturbating left, right, and center, which, that's fine, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to read a ghost story, so I don't know why I need to be reading about these children jerking off. Yeah, it was choices. Choices were made, and they were not good ones. So, sorry. I know that this series is beloved, but not this one. Not for me. Number 4 is the Paper Magician series by Charlie and Holmberg. I finally finished the series. Well, kind of. There is a 4th book, but it's a spin-off, so I'm not reading it because I don't care enough. I finished the trilogy, and that's all that I care about. But anyways, I'm just going to count this whole series as one unit because they were all equally terrible. Yikes. I was so hyped for this book. I had it on my TBR for years, and I finally got around to it, and it was just not at all what I wanted it to be. The magic system was really cool, I will give it that, and they were fun, entertaining books to read. But, oh god, the romance though. I'm not sure if it was obvious to most people what the romance was going to be going into this, but I did not figure out who the love interest was going to be until it was happening. So I'm not going to say what it is just in case it is a spoiler, because it would have been for me, so just in case I'm gonna not say it. But this type of relationship is one that makes me very uncomfortable, and I did not like it at all. The writing style was kind of bland. The plot of all 3 books were just kind of odd. They weren't that bad, but it was just really not good either, this series did not need to be 3 books. It would have been fine being 1. But yeah, just overall this series was not that good. Oh, synopsis, I'm so bad at that. The synopsis of the series, it's a historical fantasy set in a world where magic is just normal. I think anyone can choose to be a magician. So our main character is just about to graduate, and she really wants to be a metal magician, but she gets assigned to paper magic, and she is devastated because nobody likes paper magic. But she has no choice, so she goes, binds herself to paper magic, and is training to become a full magician, which takes a couple of years. So the series is just her like going through the training process, and there's a bunch of shit that happens in between and all these complications and romance and like ugh. Not for me. It was not very good. I only finished it because like they're so short that I just might as well finish them. Each book is about 230 pages, so it easily could have been one book. It could have been significantly shorter, and there was a lot of room to make it a lot more interesting because again, the world is so cool and the magic system was fantastic, but everything else was not good at all. I did not enjoy it. The third worst book of the year that I read was The 1 Minute Manager by Kenneth Blanchard, I think. Is that his name? I don't know. Some doctor dude. I did not choose to read this book. I had to read it for work as a like manager book club that I was forced to do, and it was god awful. It was so bad. I considered not putting this on here because it wasn't a book that I chose to read, but it was so bad that I still felt the need to include it on here. So yeah, basically this book is about how to be a better manager, and it follows the 1 minute managing techniques, which is actually pretty interesting. However, it is the most basic, obvious style of managing. Like, you should know all of these things before you become a manager. Just my personal opinion. So it was nothing groundbreaking. The writing style was so fucking weird. It was the weirdest thing ever. It was written as though it was a man who was talking to a 1 minute manager about how he manages his staff, and he was like doing research and getting tips, and he was going around the office and talking to other employees about the manager. And it was so weird. It was the weirdest format of a book that I've ever read. I just didn't enjoy a single page of this. This was a like 110 page book maybe. It was not very long, and it took me like a solid month to get through it because it was that bad. So, didn't like that one. Number 2, the second worst book that I read this year was How to Fall by Jane Casey. This one was terrible. I read this one for Becca's Bookopalathon, and this was a friend pick. So my best friend picked this out for me off of my roommate's bookshelves. Picked it pretty much solely off of the cover and had me read it, and I agreed because I had no choice. And it was terrible. This was so bad. This one is a YA contemporary mystery type thing. And it follows a girl who goes to visit her mother's family for the first time. She and her mother are like going to stay there for the summer, and she'll meet the whole side of that family like literally for the first time ever. It takes place about a year after her cousin, who she never met, died in mysterious circumstances. And basically the police ruled it as a suicide, but people kind of speculated that it maybe wasn't a suicide. But the case is closed, except when the main character arrives in this town, she decides that she wants to take it upon herself to figure out what happened. So she starts asking some extremely invasive questions to literal strangers around town, trying to figure out all of their deep, dark secrets and who knew her cousin, who had what kind of relationships with her, because, you know, that's any of her goddamn business, obviously. But yeah, this was bad. It was so bad. I gave this book 1 star. That never happens. It was something, all right. I hated the main character so much. She was such a bitch. She was so full of herself and thought that she was like top shit, like she was the smartest person around, and everybody else is just beneath her. She was just so awful in every regard, and she just didn't realize how awful she was, which made it even worse. And yeah, I just really did not have a good time reading this book. I will absolutely not be carrying on with the series. This was horrible, and I would like my brain to just forget that I read this, please. And now it is time for the worst book that I read in 2020. Some of you may know what this book is if you've been following my channel for a while. I did a rant review for it, which I will link down below. But the number 1 worst book of the year, Wasted Words by Stacey Hart. Yes, this one. This book. Ooh boy. So I did actually give this book a 2 stars, so even though it's a higher star rating than How to Fall, I still think this book is worse. There were just elements of it that like bumped it up a little bit that How to Fall didn't have. Confusing maybe, but like whatever. It's my list, so just go with it. I think me giving it a bit of a higher rating actually makes it worse because like it had potential. The first like 20% of this book was sitting at a 5 stars. It was wonderful. I loved the premise, the characters were fun, I was really enjoying all of it, and then it just went so far downhill and just plummeted down to earth in a fiery explosion of awful. Oh my god, it was so bad. So this book is a adult contemporary romance about a girl who works at a coffee shop slash bookstore. I think it's also a bar in the evening, I forget now. And her roommate is a former football star who injured himself and can no longer work. So it's the whole like nerd and jock thing. And of course they fall in love and then our conflict arises from there. But the reason that this book went so far downhill was because of the representation for anxiety in this book. I personally struggle with mental health issues, especially anxiety, so somebody else may have a different perspective on this. For me, this was so horribly written for anxiety rep that it just made me so angry. It was just so horribly handled. I was just imagining being the main character and being treated like that by somebody who you love and who says loves you, but then they like go and treat you like that, and it just made me so angry. I'm just gonna leave that there, and if you want to hear more thoughts, I will leave the link to the rant review down below, so go check that out. But yeah, that is the number one worst book that I read this year. Yikes. And now, moving on to the positives. We've got all the negatives out of the way, and we can go on to talking about the most wonderful, awesome, spectacular books that I read this year. This was a hard choice. I read some really good books this year. The like top 3 were easy, no-brainers, but numbers 4 and 5 were so hard to pick because there were just so many good books this year. But I am happy with my choices, so let's get started with the best books of the year. Coming in at number 5 is the Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. Yes, I'm just holding up the empty box set sleeve thing because I don't want to hold up 3 books, but I'm just considering all 3 books to be one unit. Even though I haven't read book 3 yet, it's fine, just go with it. So at least books 1 and 2 are my best books of the year. I'm assuming book 3 is going to be in the same vein, I hope at least, but if you somehow don't know, this is a portal fantasy series. I love portal fantasy so much. It's set in a world where there are 3 different versions of Londons in different dimensions, and it follows a man named Cal who is able to travel between them. So he travels between the Londons, bringing correspondence between all the kings and queens, except on the side he does also smuggle in artifacts from the different worlds, which is very much against the law, and he sells them just for fun, you know, a little side hobby. But of course this gets him in some deep shit one day when he brings something into Grey London, which is our world where there's no magic, and things go horribly wrong for him, and he meets the other main character, Lila, and our story kicks off from there. I absolutely adored this series so far. It's just so much fun, and again, like, I love portal fantasy. It is my all-time favorite genre, so like, of course I'm going to love this series. But like, this is just everything that I wanted in a series. It's so much fun, and I love the world, and the world building is just so good, and all the characters are fantastic. And like book 2 we get a magical tournament, which like, I love the tournament trope in books. So this series is just giving me every single trope that I love so much, and is doing it so well, and the writing style is fantastic, and just I'm just gushing now, so I'm gonna stop there. But yes, fantastic. Number 4 is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Oh my god, this book was amazing. I keep forgetting that I read this book this year, like it feels like it was so long ago. This is a adult contemporary romance that follows the first son of the United States falling in love with a prince of England. And it was so cute! It was so cute! Oh my god, I loved it so much. This is one of the first romance books that I ever read. I think it was the first queer romance that I read though. Game changer. Like, I want all of the queer romance now. I wasn't super into romance before, like, late last year, and like, I'm now just having a fantastic time reading romance, and this is a huge reason for that. Like, this got me into the genre so much. This was such a cute read. It was a very quick read as well. I think I read it in like one day. I was sad and single on Valentine's Day, so I wanted to read a cute romance book, so I picked up this one, and I just could not put it down. It was just so good. It was so good. This book is just the embodiment of happiness, and it was wonderful. It is so good. I don't even really have words for it, to be honest, as I'm sure you can tell by me just rambling. But just, yeah. Moving on. Now we're getting into the top 3 books of the year, and I am curious. I want to know if any of you guys can guess what my top 3 is going to be. So pause the video real quick and like leave a comment and give me your guesses for what you think my top 3 will be, because like I feel like it's pretty obvious. Like if you watch my video, you can probably guess what my top 3 books of the year are. There are going to be no surprises here. But number 3 is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. Oh, it's so good! This one follows a transgender Latinx teenager named Yadriel, who comes from a family of Brujo who can see spirits and help them pass on to the other side. And Yadriel desperately wants to become a Brujo, but because he's trans, his family doesn't think it'll work, and so they won't let him do it. So Yadriel and his best friend take it upon themselves to perform their own ritual, and it works, but they summon the wrong ghost. And then we kind of go from there, and it was just so wonderful and wholesome and like just everything that I could possibly want in a book. Yadriel is just the epitome of cinnamon roll, and like all of the characters in this book were fantastic. Julian is my favorite. I love him so much. He is such a weirdo and a sweetheart, and just, oh my gosh, like this book was just incredible, and I really have no idea how to even properly convey how much I love this book. But I do. But so I hope you can just tell by the expression on my face how much joy this book brought me, and just continues to bring me every time that I look at it, because like just this cover guys, it's amazing, so good. That's all that I can say really. My like best books of the year is just a lot of me rambling, because I just don't have the words to like express how much I loved them. So sorry that this is like very incoherent, but what can you do? Number 2. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Yes, I have 2 V.E. Schwab things on my top 5 books of the year. She has very quickly become a favorite author of mine. This one, wow. 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 It was amazing. It was so good. This follows a girl who was born in the 1700s in France. Life of a woman back then. She was going to be forced to marry a man who she did not want to marry. She wanted to live a life that was free, and so one day she prays to the gods, and one answers her, and she makes a deal that she will live forever free and untethered from others. But the trick is that nobody will remember who she is. So she can't leave any mark on the world. She can't find love, a home, a job, nothing. This book was incredible. It was so beautiful. It was just beautifully written. It read like poetry, and reading this book felt like walking through a dream, and it was just so good. It's both a love story and just kind of telling the tale of this very long life that was full of adventure and wonder and both beautiful and horrible things. It was such a delight to read this book. I will absolutely be rereading this one at some point in my life. I need to. Like, I need to experience the beauty of this book again, and I would like everybody to also experience this book at some point or another. Just do it. You will not regret it. And the number 1 best book of the year, at literally no surprise to anybody because I talk about this book so frequently, is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. No one surprised. If you have seen a single one of my videos, then this is not a surprise to you, like whatsoever. I love this book so much. This book means the world to me. This is what happiness feels like. This book, everything in the contents of this book is happiness. It's joy and wonder and just so good. It was so good. This one is a fantasy romance. It's very whimsical and just wonderful. It follows a 40-year-old man who's essentially a social worker for magical children, and one day he is given a very secret case that he's not even allowed to know about until he gets there, and like it's too late to turn around. So he brings his cat, gets on a train, and ends up at this orphanage full of magical children that are so dangerous because one of them is literally the Antichrist, and shenanigans ensue from there, as does a romance and just wonderfulness. I love this book so much. This was the cutest, most wonderfully whimsical thing you'll ever read in your life, and I'm so happy that I read this book. The audiobook is definitely the way to go. It was amazing. My light is dying, so I'm trying to talk really fast. I'm sorry, but I could honestly ramble about this book for literally hours, so I'm just going to leave it there for now. It was amazing. The writing style, fantastic. The world building, incredible. The setting, beautiful. The romance, impeccable. All of the wonderful things that I could possibly say about this book. Yes, all of them. So that's it. Those are my best and worst books of 2020. Please let me know what your best and worst books of the year were, or what you thought of mine. I would love to know your opinion. But that'll do it for today's video. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.